Social impact bonds are bonds that carry social benefit. Many see these bonds as having the ability to transform and better the financing, delivery and governance of social services. The country launched its first social impact bonds in 2018. So what has its impact been? And bottom line, are these bonds really the answer to better social services? Intellidex has launched a report looking at just that. And Zohaib Khan, who's a social economy research manager at Intellidex, joins us now to discuss some of the findings. Thanks so much for joining us this evening, Zohaib. Let's get into this report. First of all, and right at the top, what's this universe of, social impact bonds looking like in South Africa?
Good evening, and thanks for having me on the show, and hi to your viewers, listeners rather. So the universe of social impact bonds. In South Africa, the market is still very, very young. So our research is about the first 2 social impact bonds launched in the country, and as you said, they were launched in 2018. More widely, social impact bonds are new instruments, relatively speaking. So the first one was introduced in 2010 in the UK. The South African ones, first 2 started in 2018.
Yeah. Talk us through, the premise of these bonds and how they actually work to garner the kind of social impact they're targeting.
Okay, so social impact bonds are a type of payment by results financing model for social welfare services. So how they work is investors provide working capital upfront to NGOs who deliver services like, for example, training for unemployed people or early learning services for preschool-age children, as in the South African social impact bonds. And if the NGO is successful and if they meet outcome targets that are defined in the contracting phase at the start of the SIPs. Things like if they place a certain number of work seekers into jobs. If they meet those targets, then outcome funders repay the investors the money they put in at the beginning. And these outcome funders are government departments, usually, also sometimes, as in South Africa, with the support of philanthropic foundations. In this case, the Standard Bank to our Community Foundation was a major player in these bonds. So if the NGOs are unsuccessful and they don't meet those targets for their social performance, the outcome funders don't pay, and investors don't earn returns on their investments, and they could also lose their capital.
Okay.
So that's how they work.
Okay, so that's the incentive, that's the imperative. The report that you've, launched investigates the potential of using SIBs as vehicles to drive social change or have that impact. What have been some of the outcomes, and are they actually delivering?
Yeah. So both of these SIPs, that's social impact bonds, ended last year. And both of them were effective, so they met their targets. And it's largely, I think, because of the SIB structure. So you have this focus on results, and you have to meet those targets, and everyone involved in the SIBs is kind of organized around meeting them. And so that the result of that is that services are effective, and that the people who use those services receive higher quality services. We're also seeing that because of the focus on outcomes, and you have to measure them, right, and performance against them. So that generates evidence about the kinds of things that work when you are delivering unemployment focus programs, for example. And with that evidence, you can then change the way this kind of work is done elsewhere, right? So government spends loads of money, for example, on unemployment, which has been probably the country's largest problem for the last 20 years. But we have very little kind of solid evidence about how to make sure that we get more people into jobs, and SIBs, social impact bonds, are delivering some of this evidence.
Yeah. Before I let you go, what kind of growth, given this kind of track record that's been established thus far, what kind of growth do you see, coming to the fore as far as impact investing in South Africa is concerned?
So I think the impact investing movement is still quite young in South Africa, but we are seeing growing interest at Intellidex, and I really hope that the experience of these SIBs, which we have documented extensively on reports that you can find on our website, we hope that motivates more people to get involved.
And you say that South Africa, it's still small, it's still fledgling. Where do we rank relative to what's happening elsewhere in the world?
So if you look at Europe and North America, there we have, for example, things like green bonds are more of them than there are in South Africa. The social impact bond market is also bigger, especially in the UK, where there's actually there's like a stock exchange almost for social impact bonds. So they're growing here, and there's definitely a future for them.
Yeah, well, let's leave it there. Thanks so much, Zoeb, for joining us on the line this evening. That, of course, a social economy research manager at Intellidex, Zoeb Khan.